The town of Blackwood carried with it a silence that was never quite natural. Streets emptied earlier than usual. Curtains drew shut before dusk, and conversations about the past ended in abrupt hushes. Children, however, had a way of catching whispers that weren't meant for them. It always began as a dare. Someone would ask about her. Who was she? Why couldn't you say her name? That's when parents' faces would change, their voices dropping low. Don't ask. Don't ever ask. And never, ever, say her name in the dark. But the vagueness only fueled curiosity. The town's children passed the rumor around like stolen candy. Some said she was a witch who lived in the woods, burned for her sins and cursed to linger in shadow. Others whispered she was a grieving mother who drowned her own child, forever bound to darkness. No two stories matched, and no one dared to ask the elders twice. The only tangible trace of her legend was hidden in the abandoned Blackwood Elementary School. Its walls were cracked, its windows shattered, but down in the basement, scrawled in charcoal, was a rhyme no one could erase. Call her once, she'll hear you. Call her twice, she'll near you. Call her thrice, she'll claim you. No one knew who had written it. Some swore it appeared overnight, the letters jagged and uneven, as though carved by hands that had forgotten how to be human. It became the town's quiet law, an unspoken rule. Children were warned, parents obeyed, and even the bravest teenagers felt a chill if they were ever caught in the dark, a name perched on the tip of their tongue, but swallowed before it left their lips. Because in Blackwood, there was one thing everyone agreed upon. You could laugh about the stories in the daylight, but when night fell and the shadows thickened, you never said her name. It was a kind of night that felt heavier than it should. Clouds smothered the moon, the air was damp with the scent of rain, and silence pressed against the town like a suffocating blanket. Inside a narrow basement at the edge of Blackwood, for friends huddled around a circle of flickering candles. They had gathered because of him, Ethan. He was the type who lived for dares, always chasing the thrill that came with being the boldest in the room. Tonight, his dare wasn't climbing rooftops or sneaking into someone's yard. It was far darker. He wanted to prove the town's legend was nothing but an old bedtime story. Think about it, Ethan smirked, his voice low but steady. It's just a name, and you're all acting like kids. Beside him, Claire hugged her knees, her eyes darting nervously at the shadows pooling in the corners of the basement. You don't get it, she whispered. My grandmother told me about her. She swore she lost a cousin after saying it. Just don't. Tyler, trying to sound brave, muttered, It's just superstition. If it was real, half this town would have vanished by now. But the way his hands trembled against his jeans betrayed his fear. Ethan grinned, enjoying their unease. So what? You'd rather live scared of something you don't even understand. He leaned forward, lowering his voice to a dramatic whisper. Fine. I'll do it. I'll say her name. The basement seemed to grow colder. The candles sputtered, their flames stretching unnaturally long before settling again. Claire's face paled. Ethan, stop. Please. But the others said nothing. Their silence was a mixture of dread and morbid curiosity, because deep down, they wanted to know if the stories were true. Ethan drew in a breath, lips parting. The room tightened with anticipation, hearts pounding in sync with the flicker of the flames. And then, in the kind of voice that dares fate itself, he whispered it. Her name. It slipped into the basement air like poison. The others flinched, as though the sound itself had claws. For a heartbeat, nothing happened. The friends stared at one another, half relieved, half disappointed. Ethan laughed under his breath, the sound sharp and triumphant. See? Nothing. Just a story. But before he could finish, every candle flame bent sideways, as though pushed by an unseen breath. Then, one by one, they extinguished, plunging the basement into a darkness so complete it felt alive. Somewhere in that blackness, from a corner no one was standing in, came a sound. A slow, rasping breath. The basement swallowed them in silence. The kind of silence that wasn't empty, but full, thick, heavy waiting. The friends sat frozen in the dark, too afraid to move, too afraid to breathe. Then came the sound again. A wet, ragged inhale, followed by a shuddering exhale. Not one of them dared to speak, but instinctively, they drew closer together, their shoulders brushing in the pitch black. Claire's voice finally cracked the silence, trembling and small. Who's breathing? No one, Tyler whispered back. His tone was firm, but his words betrayed the lie. His pulse thundered against his throat, and every hair on his arm stood stiff. From the corner of the room, where broken shelves leaned against the wall, the sound grew louder. A dragging inhale, a rattling exhale, as though someone or something was standing there in the dark, listening. Ethan tried to laugh, but it came out thin, hollow. It's just the wind. Yet even he didn't sound convinced. His bravado, the thing that usually anchored him, was slipping. Suddenly, a candle reignited on its own. A tiny flame sputtered back to life, casting a weak glow across the basement. And, in that fragile light, they saw it. On the wall opposite them, where the candlelight barely reached, a shadow stretched. But it wasn't theirs. It was taller, thinner, its head tilted unnaturally far to the side. And though none of them moved, the shadow did. Claire gasped, covering her mouth to keep from screaming. Tyler staggered backward, knocking into the cold concrete wall. Ethan's smirk was gone, his face pale and drenched in sweat. "Don't look at it," whispered Jenna, the quietest of the group, her voice breaking. "If you look too long, she'll notice you." But it was already too late. The shadow lifted its head, slowly, deliberately, as though it had been waiting for acknowledgement. The single candle sputtered again, its flame shrinking to a fragile point of light. And from the dark corner, the rasping breath turned into something else. A whisper, one word, low drawn out, almost a name. The whisper clung to the air like smoke, curling through the basement, seeping into their bones. None of them understood the word, not fully. It was distorted, stretched, spoken in a voice that didn't sound human. But the way it scraped along the walls made their blood run cold. The candle went out again. This time, nothing relit. They were plunged into a darkness, so total it pressed against their eyelids. And then silence. Not even the ragged breath. Not even their own. Because they were all holding it. Until Ethan. Claire's voice cracked, barely above a whisper. Her hand reached blindly in the dark, searching for his arm. But where she expected warmth, there was nothing. "Ethan, stop messing around," Tyler hissed, trying to mask his panic. He reached out too, brushing against Claire's trembling fingers, then Jenna's. But when he reached left, Ethan wasn't there. A scrape echoed across the concrete floor, as though shoes being dragged away. "Ethan!" Claire screamed, breaking the silence. Her voice bounced off the basement walls, but there was no reply. Only that faint sound of dragging, growing fainter. Then gone. When Tyler struck a match with shaking hands, the tiny flame lit the circle again. Ethan's spot was empty. His phone lay on the floor, screen cracked, flashlight dead. His jacket was crumpled in the corner like shed skin. Claire's sobs broke through the suffocating silence. Jenna pulled her close, though her own face was pale, eyes darting to the corner where the shadow had been. The corner was empty now. Too empty. We can't stay here," Tyler whispered, his throat dry. "We have to go. Now." They stumbled out of the basement, leaving the candles behind. None of them looked back. But the next morning, Ethan's bed was still untouched. His parents said he never came home. His window was wide open, the curtains billowing as if something had slipped inside during the night. And from that day forward, the three of them knew the truth. It wasn't just a story. The warning wasn't just superstition. Saying her name in the dark had cost Ethan everything. And now, something had noticed them too. For 3 days, Ethan was gone. His parents plastered his face on missing posters, the police combed through the woods, and the town buzzed with whispered theories. But Claire, Tyler, and Jenna knew better. They hadn't spoken a word about that night in the basement. How could they? Who would believe them? Each of them tried to carry on, but the nights were unbearable. Claire swore she heard her name being whispered in her sleep, pulling her awake to an empty room. Tyler found handprints on the inside of his bedroom window, smeared in condensation though the glass had been locked. Jenna woke one morning to find all her mirrors turned backward against the wall. And then, on the fourth night, Ethan came back. Claire was the first to see him. She was walking home after dark, her coat pulled tight against the chill, when she noticed someone standing beneath the old street lamp at the end of her road. The figure didn't move, didn't wave, just stood in the thin cone of yellow light, waiting. "Ethan," she called, her voice trembling. The figure stepped forward. It was him, same dark hair, same jacket. His face pale from days unseen. Relief surged through her, almost buckling her knees. But as he drew closer, that relief turned to something else. His eyes didn't quite meet hers. They hovered, darting toward the shadows instead. His skin seemed wrong, grayish, like damp paper left too long in the rain. And when he finally spoke, his voice was hollow, as though echoing from somewhere far away. "She heard us." Claire froze. The words scraped against her, cold and final. Ethan's lips twitched into something like a smile, but it didn't reach his eyes. He leaned close, his breath stale and metallic. "She's still hungry." And then, without another word, he turned and walked away, vanishing into the mist that hung low over the street. When Claire told Tyler and Jenna the next day, they refused to believe her, until Ethan appeared again. First outside Tyler's house, just standing at the tree line. Then at Jenna's window, watching her through the glass, unmoving for hours. Each time, he said nothing more, just the same phrase, over and over. "She heard us. She's still hungry." By then, they knew it wasn't Ethan who had returned. Not really. What stood before them was a hollow echo, a shell carrying something else inside. And whatever it wasn't finished with them. The three of them gathered in Jenna's attic, the only place that felt safe, high above the ground, away from shadows that seemed to follow them everywhere. The single bulb overhead buzzed faintly, threatening to burn out. Claire's hands shook as she spread old newspapers and journals across the floor. She had spent the last 2 nights digging through the town library archives, searching for her. The name they should never have said. "I found this," she whispered, sliding forward a brittle article dated 1891. "Local woman condemned for witchcraft, disappears after trial." Beneath the headline was a grainy photograph of a woman with hollow eyes, her hair hanging in tangled ropes. Tyler leaned closer, his voice low. "That's her, isn't it?" Claire nodded. Her name was Margaret Hale. They accused her of killing children, of feeding them to the dark. But she vanished before they could burn her. They said she swore a curse, that anyone who spoke her name after sunset would call her back. Jenna's voice trembled. "And Ethan, he called her." We all heard it. They fell silent, the truth pressing down like a weight. None of them wanted to say what they already knew. She hadn't taken Ethan. Ethan had brought her back. And now she was bound to them. Tyler ran his hands through his hair, frustration mounting. "So what do we do? We can't just wait for her." But waiting wasn't an option. The signs were already getting worse. Claire's bedroom walls had been scratched in the night, 3 long claw marks running parallel, too deep for nails. Jenna's dreams were filled with whispers, voices that weren't her own, calling her into the woods. And Tyler confessed he woke to find Ethan sitting at the edge of his bed, staring at him in the dark. "She doesn't just want Ethan," Claire whispered. "She wants all of us." As if on cue, the attic bulb flickered violently. The air grew colder. From the corner, a faint whisper rose, soft, drawn out, unmistakable. Each of them froze. It was her name. Spoken once. The light flickered again. Spoken twice. Claire scrambled to her feet, her eyes wide with terror. "Don't let her finish," she screamed. But before they could act, the attic bulb shattered, plunging them into choking darkness. And in that darkness, the third whisper came. The attic was drowned in blackness, broken glass crunching under their feet as they stumbled, clutching each other. That third whisper still echoed in their ears, soft and poisonous, as though it had been spoken inside their heads rather than in the room. "She's here," Jenna gasped, her voice shaking. "She's in the dark with us." From the far corner, something shifted. A scraping sound, like bare feet dragging across wood. The temperature dropped so sharply their breath curled in the air, white and fragile. Tyler fumbled with his phone flashlight, his hands trembling too violently to hold steady. The beam flickered on, cutting through the gloom for just a second, long enough to reveal a figure. Ethan. But not Ethan. He stood hunched in the corner, eyes hollow, mouth twisted into a grotesque smile. His skin sagged like damp cloth, and from behind his shoulders stretched something long and black, tendrils coiling outward like smoke. "She's still hungry," he whispered. The voice wasn't his anymore. It was layered, fractured, several voices speaking at once. Claire screamed, backing toward the attic stairs. But the door slammed shut before she reached it, the wood rattling as though nailed by unseen hands. The shadows thickened, spreading across the floor like a flood, crawling toward them. "She doesn't want one of us," Jenna whispered, frozen in place. "She wants all of us." The shadows surged upward, swallowing the walls, erasing every outline of safety. Tyler dropped his phone. The light died, swallowed whole. They were left in absolute darkness again. Then came the whispers. Not one voice now, but hundreds, calling their names. Overlapping, suffocating. Claire felt icy fingers brush her arm. Jenna felt breath against her neck. Tyler felt something claw lightly at his chest. "Don't answer her," Claire begged through sobs. "No matter what, don't answer." But it was too late. In the blackness, one by one, their voices broke. Tyler shouted, then vanished with a sound like rushing wind. Jenna's scream was cut short as though dragged into water. Claire clung to the floorboards, her fingernails breaking, her throat raw with prayers. The last thing she heard was Ethan's distorted voice, inches from her ear. "You called her. Now you belong to her." And then silence. By morning, the attic was empty. The broken bulb still lay on the floor. The newspapers and journals were gone, leaving only dust. When the townspeople spoke of it later, they added one more line to the old rhyme etched in the abandoned school basement. "Call her once, she'll hear you. Call her twice, she'll near you. Call her thrice, she'll claim you. And if you try to break the chain, she'll take you just the same." And so the warning spread again, whispered from parent to child, etched deeper into Blackwood's memory. Never say her name in the dark, ever.